Hello everybody and welcome back to another video. Today's video is a follow-up video, the second part of the video that I uploaded yesterday. The full video ended up being like 40 minutes long, so I cut it into two parts. Yesterday I talked about the stuff that we talked about in the Overwatch 2 developer PvP live stream, as well as in the Q&A they did with a bunch of content creators and stuff, community members that they did. That Stylosa made a video on. So those are two things that I talked about in that last video. So if you're interested in any of that stuff, you can check that out in the description or in the cards, end of this video, whichever one you think is interesting. But this second part is going to be looking at the AMA that the team did on the Overwatch subreddit on Monday. So let's jump into that and let's take a look at that AMA. So now we'll move on to the AMA. I have a lot of questions from here, so bear with me as we get through this one because there is a ton to cover. This is in no particular order. I literally just went through down the list and pulled the questions that I found that I thought were the most interesting. Like I said, this is not all of them. There are a ton more that you could find through the link in the description to the AMA, and it'll just show you anything there is to find. But let's go through the ones that I have on here and talk about them. So this first question is directed towards Jeff Goodman and Scott Mercer, and the question is how the underlying philosophy of Overwatch has changed over the years and into Overwatch 2. How, if at all, have the objectives for what you want players to feel in game changed going to this next era for Overwatch? And Jeff Goodman replied saying, for Overwatch 1, most of the philosophy changes have been small tactical changes throughout the game's life, rather than large sweeping changes. The biggest sweeping changes to philosophy were when we went to single hero limit and then to role lock. At its heart, the game has always been about super over-the-top heroes that are simple to understand but have a lot of depth in gameplay, especially when combined with other heroes on your team. When making new heroes or changing old ones, it's a constant fight for us internally to try and make sure the heroes are simple and focused from a gameplay perspective. This has been gotten harder over time. Good job, Jeff. As we add new heroes and push to keep every hero feeling unique at the same time. For Overwatch 2, this core philosophy is still the same, but we're looking at some of these things in somewhat of a new light. We're still pushing hard to keep heroes simple and deep, but there are some specifics we've changed, such as more aggressive tank play, which can change how we make tank heroes. My speaking is already getting bad, so this will be fun. The next question, is there some sort of PvP arcade mode that will allow players to use all the hero talent tree abilities? Aaron Keller answered this one saying this could be a really fun thing, or this could be really fun and I'd love to do it, but none of the talents are being designed with PvP balance in mind, so it could get a little out of control. If we were to introduce a mode that included those in the arcade, it wouldn't focus on the competitive nature of the game. Also, talents in tiny Overwatch games would be amazing. I really want this mode. I think it would be. I don't care if it's like not competitively viable. I wouldn't expect it to be. I think it would be fun just to mess around and use scatter arrow again, and I don't know, whatever other things, like then may have like a flamethrower or something. I don't remember. Somebody did. I mentioned before I'd talk about the beta. Here's another question. Will there be a beta? And the response to this one comes from John LaFleur, who is one of the technical directors. And he said, almost certainly yes. If I knew when, I couldn't tell you. If I told you, I'd have to kill you. But Aaron Keller is our resident secret leaker, so you might give him a try. Smiley face. Aaron Keller, tell us when the beta is. Here's one that I thought was interesting. It is not competitive related, it is story content related, but I thought it was very important, so I wanted to include this one. The question is long, but it is one of the main selling points of Overwatch 2 is the campaign and story content. But there is a large crowd of players who either have only a very basic understanding of the lore or haven't engaged with it at all. Consequently, there has been a bit of misinformation spreading around the community about certain key points of the story. I think this is due to the story being told outside of the game in the form of external media like comics, short stories, and animations, and not easily being accessible. You kind of have to go out of your way to learn more about the world and its characters, which is not something some people are so easily willing to do. Has there ever been a plan to implement a system that could entice and better educate current new and returning players about the Overwatch universe? Aaron Keller responded, great question. You're looking at this from a few angles. The first is how to include more of this content inside of Overwatch 2 itself, either through storytelling in the game or through other systems that could contain and deliver this lore, whether it's past Overwatch or current Overwatch 2 story. The second is looking at ways of bringing people up to speed with media outside of the game. Both are really exciting, and I can't wait for people to see it. So most likely there will be some type of lore type of stuff that you can get in-game, which will make it easier to learn about the lore, which is very, very nice. I like Overwatch 2's lore, but it can be a little confusing, so that is something I'd like to see. This is a big, big question about the future of one of the heroes, so here's a fun one. This question is, hello! So you mentioned in this news blog that Bastion is going to be reworked from the ground up. Are you able to share some things you are trying with Bastion? And Jeff Goodman, who is of course the lead hero designer, responded with, sure. When reapproaching Bastion, the biggest starting point is, what is the core of this hero that feels like we should make sure to preserve? Our answer to that is that he is a transforming robot with huge damage potential when he is using his various modes well. We want to make sure Bastion isn't purely about aim skill, but he also has a big focus on situational awareness and timing/position. We're looking at pushing his recon form's range out by changing his recon weapon. His recon form, of course, being the form that he's in when he can walk around. And Jeff goes further saying this helps him generally be more useful, but also helps create separation between his other forms, especially Sentry, which is his stationary turret form. For stationary form, the cost of reducing his mobility to gain huge damage is still interesting, and it's the heart of what makes him work. However, completely removing his mobility has proved to be too harsh of a penalty, and frankly, it's not realistically possible to balance him with this downside in mind, especially between different skill levels. So right now we're testing allowing him to move in Sentry form, but just more slowly than normal. This comes with new tuning for a Sentry weapon, of course, so it isn't quite as deadly as it is in Overwatch 1. There's more to talk about with him down the road, but we're still in the middle of reworking him, so hopefully we'll be able to show him off in more detail down the road. That's really interesting to hear. I think that making the turret form of Bastion be able to move is very, very good, and I think that having more differentiation between the two forms will also be very cool, because it gives you more reason to play them in different ways. I wonder if a weapon he'll have in his recon form, if it's like a single shot, like rifle type weapon that does a lot of damage, but is more of like a skill shot, requiring a little better aim. And then if, his Sentry form is where he's able to do, more damage in kind of burst potential as like a full auto weapon. I don't really know, but I'm interested to see how Bastion has changed, because I think Bastion is a hero that I played a lot when I first started playing the game, but he's just not very good, and so it kind of makes him a little less fun to play. I don't know, but I guess we shall see. Next question. This is a good one. Aaron said recently that they were looking to announce something big for Overwatch 1. What is a rough estimate on when we can hear news about this new feature? There's also a similar question, which is basically like, hey, can we expect any big things like new heroes or anything in Overwatch 1? And Aaron linked to the same answer, which is, we have several exciting things coming to Overwatch. As far as rough estimates go, one large feature will be announced somewhere in the time frame between soon and really soon. So something big will be coming to Overwatch. I don't think it'll be a new hero. When they released Echo, they said Echo would be the last new hero. So they could surprise us and drop another new hero, but I'm going to assume it's some type of either new map, which is unlikely, or just some type of new feature. I don't think it'll be a new hero, but that's just me. Something that was touched upon once in the past by Jeff Kaplan, but now is getting touched on again by Aaron Keller, is if the team has considered adding a ping system. That would really help with communication. And Aaron Keller said, we've definitely considered this. In fact, we have a prototype of it running internally right now. We don't make a habit of promising things to players until they are actually announced, and I'm not going to break that tradition right now, though he was sure he'll blow it at some other point at AMA. But it is something that they are excited about as a team and are working through issues currently. Next question. In the live stream, we saw that May had lost her freeze, and it was mentioned that McCree was probably losing his stun. So as you want the tank role to be more crowd control oriented rather than DPS, and in turn you were looking possibly to nerfing mobility due to the less CC options available. So this person asks, how is this going to affect someone like Doomfist, and to a lesser extent Hammond, where their kits rely so much on CC and mobility to function correctly that reducing both these things could utterly destroy the character in both balance and class fantasy? And Jeff Goodman responded with, this is something we're actually in the middle of testing right now. The idea is to reduce crowd control, especially stun effects, on non-tank heroes. This doesn't mean that tanks will gain more CC, or they will lose damage and focus on CC more. It's more that by removing some CC effects on existing non-tank heroes, it means that the current tank lineup would retain the majority of the CC effects as part of their role. This not only gives tanks something unique and interesting about their role, but it significantly reduces the amount of CC effects in the game as a whole, especially in a world where there is only one tank per team. This isn't a hard rule either. Currently, we're pretty happy with Ana's Sleep Dart, for example, so I don't think we'd change it just to fit within this new paradigm. As for Doomfist and Hammond, well, Hammond is a tank, so it's okay that he has more CC effects. Doomfist is a hero we'd need to look at, though, for other reasons as well. He can be frustrating to play against for other reasons. I'd say the more pressing matter for us is how powerful Doomfist and Hammond and other high mobility heroes such as Tracer can be in a world where there is a lot less CC to control and stop them. There were a couple of follow-up questions to this as well, which were interesting. So one was, are you guys happy with Lucio's boop? Definitely can be a star move on a team fight to boop people out of the map. And Jeff Goodman responded, yeah, we feel like this is pretty core to Lucio, so we're not likely to change this. Also, tanks have a role passive to have reduced knockback effects against them now, so that helps tank players quite a bit. I like the sound of that. I think boop is not the worst of them, so I think that's pretty good. And the other one is there a chance for Mei to become a tank so she can keep her freeze mechanic in some way? To which Jeff Goodman said, possibly they're still on the list to play around with, or that's the list to play around with. And then he said, for what it's worth, she can still freeze with her ultimate, as I mentioned earlier. Here's another change, not really a competitive one, but one I've seen questions about and I've seen people wondering about, so I wanted to put this one in here. The question is, while I really like the idea of changing the look of the heroes, will they come out as the default look of the characters in Overwatch 1, or will they be an exclusive skin for the look of Overwatch 1 players? Or maybe not be seen at all? And also, will these new looks affect the skins already released in the game? Arnold Sang, that is who this is in case you're wondering, he responded, the new looks of the heroes will be the default look in Overwatch 2, and your skins from Overwatch 1 will carry over and the new looks won't affect them. Very, very nice. Another more cosmetic related one, but this one I think is really, really good. Over the last 5 years, a lot of awesome new skins were added to the game. In fact, I can't decide which one to equip on multiple heroes and swap them regularly. Have you ever considered a random skin option similar to the random option for highlight intros? And Aaron Keller responded, we have looked at this. If we were to do it, it likely wouldn't be completely random because we're not sure that's exactly what players want. Did I just say that? Yes, Aaron Keller, you did just say that. What I meant to say was that players might want the ability to just pick from a certain subset of skins, such as all their legendaries or their 4 favorites. It also wouldn't change each time a player spawned for technical reasons, which, yeah, I wouldn't expect that to happen. Another interesting one here. Will Overwatch 2 launch on all platforms day 1? Specifically, will it hit Nintendo Switch the same day as PC, Xbox, and PlayStation? And will it run on both the previous gen and newer gen consoles? This one was answered by lead software engineer Bill Warnicki, who said, as a live ops engineer, I loved shipping Overwatch on all platforms and in all regions at the same time. It was a huge challenge and was very exciting. It's definitely our goal to do the same for Overwatch 2, but of course, I can't promise that we won't hit any blocks that prevent us from doing that. Next question, what is one common misconception about the game, Overwatch 1, Overwatch 2, or anything else, that you hear all the time from the community that you'd like to clear up? Jeff Goodman replied, for me in the short term, I'd say the biggest misconception I see about 5v5 and one tank is that off-tanks are being removed, changed, etc. But really many off-tank heroes are getting tankier, and many main tank heroes are getting less tanky and more damage and having more options. So really the new tanks are something in between main tanks and off tanks. If anything, I would guess that off tanks would have an easier time adjusting to Overwatch 2's new tank role than main tank players. This is the general consensus I've heard from a lot of people. I know Fried Wiener talked about this, Sideshow talked about this, that probably these are the players who will have the easiest change because the mechanics are going to kind of carry over more from your more typically mechanically gifted off-tank players. Next question is, what's going to happen to 2CP? Will the maps be reworked for different modes, or is it getting a major readjustment? Aaron Keller answered, each Overwatch game mode requires very different maps. Reworking the original 2CP maps into another game mode would probably be just as hard, if not harder, than building a whole new map from scratch with that particular art kit. As far as its future is concerned, we've talked about giving it a place in the arcade, and we don't have any plans to build any future 2CP maps. I think it should get an arcade mode just in case there are people who want to play it. Like, I don't love Assault, but I do like some of the maps, and so I think it'd be cool to at least have some places where the game mode still exists. Next question, will the green overhealth still be removed by EMP? How do Brigitte and Torbjorn's temporary armor factor into that? Jeff Goodman replies saying, currently no, EMP does not remove overhealth, but hopefully as evidence from some of my other answers, things are very heavily in flux right now, especially in regards to CC and Sombra, so it's possible we'll make it work on all overhealth. I'll talk more about Sombra a little bit later though, there was another question about her. Brig and Torb gain overhealth instead of over armor now, but it acts like normal health and so doesn't have any innate damage reduction built into it anymore. We'll have to compensate for that as needed, probably by giving more health for them, though I will go one step further and ask, should armor even work the same way it does in Overwatch 1? It's fairly complex, and if you ask an average player how exactly armor works, most of them will just say something like, oh, I don't know, it reduces damage taken somehow. We haven't changed anything with it yet, but it's on my list to look at and maybe simplify into something like armor health takes minus X% damage. It has further implications if we do that, like bigger hits no longer feeling like they are armor piercing, such as a Widow Shot or a Fire Rocket, but maybe it's worth the trade-off, I'm not sure yet. This is one I wanted to bring up for the Overwatch League fans specifically. Over the years, you have released many skins that were only available for a limited time through the League store, weekly challenges, or collaborations with charities. Are there any plans or thoughts on giving us another chance to earn these skins? I've seen a lot of demand for it, especially from players like me who earned or bought these skins on one platform, but switched to another and weren't able to bring them over. John Spector, the vice president for the Overwatch League, responded, on the League store side of things, we are considering bringing back some of the Overwatch League skins from years past. Personally, I'm missing the Atlantic All-Star Mercy skin and want that smiley face. I have all of the Overwatch League MVP skins and All-Star skins, but I know some people don't. Looking at you, Sideshow, who didn't get the Jonax skin. You may get a chance to get him in the future. We'll see. I think it'd be cool to do that every year when they do the All-Star things. Just to kind of, make the new ones more expensive, right? Like a normal $200 price, and then bump down the prices of the older ones to $100 or so. I think that'd be cool. I think that'd be a good way to let people get those again in the future without making them too exclusive and kind of penalizing people who aren't playing at that specific time. The next question is the question about Sombra that I mentioned before. The question is, can you share something about some ideas you've went through when it comes to her kit for Overwatch 2? I'd imagine her hack might be oppressive in a setting where you can just hard focus it on the solo tank of a team. And maybe there is a goal to push her towards more of a DPS, as her kit is almost supportive in nature with hack. And a fun follow-up if you considered making her a support at any point. If so, are there any ability ideas you tried you'd consider sharing? Jeff Goodman said, she actually started as a support. I talked about that in a different answer already, though. I don't know which one that one is, honestly, but I think it was not that different. For Overwatch 2, I've done some iteration on her in regards to how she might work in a world where there is less crowd control effects for damage heroes. Recently, we've run two different playtest ideas for her. The first is that she couldn't hack players at all anymore, but instead she gained a plus 50% damage bonus when shooting an enemy in the back. And the other one is that she could hack players again, but a hack on an enemy just meant your allies could see that player through walls instead of silencing them. She could also hack while invisible. She was invisible while hacking, but invis wasn't broken. Then she gained a plus 30% damage bonus against hacked targets. These are interesting ideas, but each had their own share of big problems. For number 1, it felt weird/bad to just never be able to hack enemies. She's supposed to be this hacker, but her hack was relegated to health packs mostly. This is potentially solvable if we added a lot more things she could hack, such as objectives and barriers, etc., but I'm not sure it's worth chasing at this point. For number 2, it was super fun to hack people while invisible and play more of the cat and mouse game more often, but her ult was terrible in this version without further changes to it. I'm unsure about this direction as well, as it sort of downplays her hacking in general. This is just an example of stuff we can try when iterating on a new hero or on a hero and playtesting new ideas. Both of these ideas were in the camp of, well, what if she was more deadly, but we downplayed her hacking a bit? But there are other directions we could try as well. The next question, this is an interesting one. This is a good one. What are the PvP map types for Gothenburg and India? Aaron Keller said not Scott, but I'll answer it all the same. I don't think we have officially announced PvP maps for either of these locations. However, if we were to make maps for them, I think it would be a great idea if they were built for some super exciting, as yet unannounced game mode. To which somebody said, 99% sure Gothenburg was shown briefly at BlizzCon 2019. Of course, it was an assault map at the time. Looking forward to this new game mode. To which Aaron Keller responded, oh shoot, you might be right. Waiting for Brain to come up with something intelligent to say. So that's interesting. India, to my knowledge, was not specifically referenced as having a story or a multiplayer map, but Gothenburg was, and I can tell you right now, I remember Gothenburg being shown off back in 2019. You cannot get anything by Overwatch fans. I remember when maps are shown. I remember when they're shown to have specific multiplayer modes. Gothenburg was shown as an assault map, so we'll see if it changes in the future. I'll be interested to see what it looks like going forward, but that to me is going to be very, very interesting. See what this new game mode is. This next question is, have you considered moving some of the more CC-focused DPS heroes into the tank role? Obviously, 5v5 is a huge shakeup. We've heard comments from Jeff Goodman and others that a general shift from DPS CC to tank CC is expected. Instead of removing May's freeze, give her a Frozone movement speed and some rebalancing on her base health and ability health. She has always acted as an off-tank as is. I think Doomfist would be another good example. Instead of reworking these iconic heroes, rebalancing them to fit the tank role. This would bring some hero mains into the tank role that hadn't previously enjoyed it, as well as increasing the small tank role hero pool. Lastly, will we see a classic 6v6 quick play option in the arcade like we currently see of no limits? Jeff Goodman said, I think the common one that comes up here is May, which is something we've talked about in the past, but we haven't run the May tank experiment internally yet. I feel like she would have to change quite a bit to fit the tank role, so it's a bit more of a rework to have her fit well into that role. It doesn't mean it's off the table, just that it's not a trivial change to throw in and try out. If we did try it, I'm sure we'd try the ice slide that everyone loves to think about. It certainly feels more acceptable in a tank, which will allow her to engage in front of her team, etc. Doomfist, I think, requires a bit more thought than even May. He's extremely unique even amongst the Overwatch roster, but he essentially requires CC to control him, and he throws out a bit too much CC himself, even if he were a tank. We haven't started digging into him yet, as we're still figuring out how some of these CC changes are going to play out, but he's on my list to look at as soon as we can. Ideally, I'd love to keep his high mobility, ability-based gameplay intact, but be less frustrating to play against. This next question is a collection of questions, basically, all in one, so not all of them I'm going to go through, because not all of them were answered, but I will answer them as they are answered. So, The first question that was asked is, should we still expect Paris and Horizon maps back in Overwatch 1, or will they be kept for Overwatch 2? Aaron Kelly responded that we were in the middle of reworking both Horizon and Paris, and we made the decision to move away from the Assault game mode, and those projects are currently on hold and probably won't be restarted. And then there was also a question about pineapple on pizza, yes or no. And Aaron Keller said that seeing the words pineapple and pizza together in the same sentence caused him to briefly lose consciousness in a fit of rage and bewilderment. Let me tell you, the Overwatch team is really has very strong opinions on pineapple on pizza. Jeff Goodman responded to some of the questions. So one of the questions was, I think that the team has made great decisions with changing the team composition to be 5v5. Hold on, reading that gave me a little bit of brain pain. But I think most people, oh my, this is so bad. But I think most reason why people get upset on that change is because of the tank synergy we have right now. Has the team thought about forgiving that in any way? By, I don't know, changing DPS maybe? Jeff's response is, one of the core goals of Overwatch hero design is to create these fun synergies and combos throughout the entire roster. It certainly sucks to lose some of these combos, but a lot of game design is making a call to decide if what you are gaining is worth what you are losing. In this case, after significant playtesting, we think it's more than worth it for the benefits we gain out of 5v5. Next question is, it seems that the tanks with Overwatch 2 go more in a brawly direction than protect and peel direction, which I am scared makes the game more watch out for yourself than watch out for your teammates, and I don't like this direction. Should we expect loads of changes from what we have been shown on the stream in terms of tanks? Jeff Goodman said, I think we want to make sure we offer a lot of different options for different playstyles, as always. As a broad answer, yes, tanks will be getting more brawly, but looking at heroes like D.Va, she is gaining much more matrix meter, and she isn't losing her flight knockback or anything else at the moment anyway. So she'll be even better at peeling than before. Even our current Zarya iteration allows her to potentially use 2 of her barriers back-to-back on an ally, instead of shielding herself, which actually significantly increases her peeling potential as well. Next question is, what is most challenging thing about developing Overwatch 2 and maintaining Overwatch 1? Jeff Goodman replied, really the biggest thing is how different Overwatch 2 has become and how it is constantly changing. We have to keep in mind how Overwatch 1 is currently playing and what changes we think would be best for it, without thinking about how different they are in Overwatch 2. It's like juggling 2 different metas and environments, and it's easy to mix them up in my mind and or memory sometimes. And of course, the pineapple on pizza yes or no question, Jeff's response was, more people need to open their minds, hearts, and most importantly mouths, to the fact that pineapple on pizza is always great. Bonus, try pineapple and jalapeno on a pizza together, it's magical. And good old John LaFleur just replied with, that's disgusting. Arnold Sang also, should be noted, gave a reply to the pineapple on pizza question. He also said yes. So we have a split decision right there. Pineapple on pizza is destroying the Overwatch team. Pineapple on pizza is going to ultimately be the end of Overwatch. Overwatch 2 is going to fail purely because the team cannot decide whether or not they like pineapple on pizza. And I think that is a real shame, because I think that that is such a stupid thing to end up, losing the game design over. But you know what? Sometimes it happens. So that is it for me for today. This was a bit of a long one, so if you watched this whole thing, thank you very much, because I'm surprised that you did. Yes, anyway, that is all. Thank you so much. If you enjoyed this video, want more like it in the future, consider liking and subscribing. Comment down below your thoughts on anything I talked about today, whatever it may be. Let me know your thoughts down there. That is all from me. Hope you're all staying safe and staying healthy. And until next time, bye-bye.